now I'd like to invite Michael to the stage. I'm really looking forward to having you on stage again here at DSS ISE. It's been a couple of years that you've been here, but you're also always a source of inspiration. Michael, Luck Schneider from Gensler, and you're going to sing an ode, I heard.
Yes, true.
So the stage is here.
Great, thank you so much. All right, thank you all for coming out. Excited to talk to you about a topic that I'm really passionate about. I'm going to give you like a 3-minute overview of where I work, and then we're going to dive into talking about proof of concepts, prototyping, mockups, and really how they're a key part of us being able to be successful at the things that we're doing. So Gensler is the largest architecture and design firm in the world, with over 6,000 employees. We're an employee-owned company, and we are in most countries in the world. Primarily North America is where you see the most of us, but we're really everywhere. We have about 30 different practice areas, so our teams specialize in everything from aviation to culture and museums. We do a ton of workplace, and we have teams that are specialized within workplace, looking at media workplace versus tech workplace. Our team is digital experience design. We function a little bit differently than our typical practice areas, where we really work across all of those different specialties, and we look at how technology gets integrated into the built environment as a core part of your experience in the built environment, right? So it's not the architects, interior designers make a beautiful space and then you throw a screen on the wall. It's really thinking about the whole experience from the human first, and then designing the tools, the technology, the content, the interactions to support it. Not an easy task. I'm sure that many of you face some of the challenges of an integrated design process on a regular basis, but there are some tricks to really making it to work. We really think about the integration of brand, architecture, digital strategy to really support that experiential design. Going to show very quickly a little video of just some of the work that we've done. You can see we really stretch across all these different practice areas, from exterior facades to retail to workplace, and always looking at things that impact humans at an emotional level, that really support the brand experience and the storytelling. And we use all different mediums, so it's not just screens. We do kinetic, we do scent, we do tactile, but screens obviously are a large part of the experience. I think one thing you'll also see maybe through this is that we also think about space as a platform for supporting things. So a lot of our spaces are meant to change throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year. And so that's a key part of really creating a space that's also more sustainable, right? I think that very often people design single-use spaces and they're used 10% of the time. But when you think about space as a multi-use space, you automatically start to get a lot more value and also create a more sustainable environment. All right, now we're going to dive into the part that makes me really excited and something that I've been pursuing for almost 20 years now. And I think at the core, one of the things that you have to shift your mind to understand, you know, on the left here, you've got a 16:9 screen on a wall. And this is a traditional digital design exercise. And I think there's two aspects about it that are key. One is that this is a really known medium. You know, it is the size is the known medium, but also just the size it stays compared to where you are. If you're further away, it gets bigger. If you're closer, it gets smaller. So totally known medium, but then the tools that you use to create that medium are the medium, right? So it's like the sculptor sculpts in stone, and the digital designer designs on the pixels that they are creating the design for. And what that means is that you can have rapid iterative design, right? That a web page might go through 1,000 iterations before it goes live, and then once it goes live, it keeps evolving based on the information back. And so there's a fundamental process that supports digital design that, frankly, as soon as you just turn your screen 90 degrees, like 80% of this stuff just gets tossed out the window. And people just don't think about that even as simple of a switch as a landscape to portrait. All the stock images, the person that's sitting at their desk working, most of them don't turn their screen portrait, so they're like looking at this little weird portrait thing on their landscape screen. And so there's a real shift of mindset and process that has to happen as soon as you start moving out of the traditional space. And really what it gets to is you have to get real. You have to think about the human experience. You have to get your hands a little dirtier. Now, on top of all of this, we've all, for the last 2.5, 3 years, got really good at sitting at home, staring at a screen, and designing everything in abstract, right? And I think that we're lazy right now. Like, we've got bad habits that just exacerbate some of these issues of really trying things out. So, what I talk to my team is get up off your seat, like, just stand up. If you're designing something for human beings, like, don't sit in your seat and design something for human beings. Get up and imagine yourself as that user. And there's a whole bunch of different practices that can support that, right? Like, get on site, understand the site conditions. I can't tell you how many times I've dragged a designer to the site and they step in and they're like, oh, that's really different than what I was thinking. And it totally changes their design. Body storming. Like, what does it feel like to walk 20 feet through a space and then look at something, right? If you're going to design something that's meant for that, just do that action once, or get 5 friends and understand, 5 of you in a space that's, 10 square meters. What does that feel like? What do you see? So that you can start putting yourself in the position of your users. Grab a GoPro, like, go document the space. We'll often set up a camera and do time lapse just to understand the flow of people through the space, understand the rhythms of the space so that I can impact your design. Projectors are great for doing scale testing. Like, pull out a cheap projector, project things at scale. What does it mean to stand next to a screen that's 10 feet tall? Tape, blue tape, you'll see, I love blue tape. It's amazing things, and everybody, you can usually get a demo, and so actually see what the technology is so that you can make smart decisions with your clients and with your colleagues. So how do you do this? This has to be integrated into the design process, and I think I talk a lot with our design managers, our project managers, about how you really have to bake this into your scope, right? Like, if you don't have it in your scope, it's not gonna happen. And so one way to really push it is to really understand how to bake it into your scope. This is our design process from discovery through occupancy. And discovery is really all about understanding the site, understanding the light in the site. Hugely, I can't tell you how many times someone throws an LED screen on a wall that has, like, direct sunlight. And not only are you fighting with the sun all day, but you're also wasting so much electricity that's unnecessary. Or they throw a display in an area that on the rendering looks good, but when you walk into the space, there's a column or something obscuring it. So understand your site conditions. During our concept phase, it's really about understanding the user experience. And so this is really where that body storming, getting your hands on the technology is really key. And this is also where you can innovate, right? This is your one opportunity. If you're like, okay, what if I put this sensor tech with this sound technology? What could that do? And so do those rapid proof of concepts to support that user experience. As you get into the design phase, it really moves into risk mitigation. It's really about understanding now, based on your concept design, what's really going to work. And that can be everything from the content to the technology to even the data. Like, I have people that, designers come up, it would be so cool to graph the stock market data. And I'm like, well, how quickly does that actually change? Like, the rhythm of that data is not at all compelling unless they're looking at micro movements that are very specific. So understanding all of those things happens in design, and then production is really about quality assurance and tuning and tweaking and really massaging it into the actual site. And then if you've done all of this well, then once it's in sight, you can start assessing it and seeing how well it's performing and evolving it. So I'm going to show you a few quick examples of these types of activities and how our team has used it. The first one is a confidential site, so but it was, I don't have another picture. So, but this is something that our whole team went at the very beginning of the project. It was a massive site, and really got on site to look at viewing angles, to look at light conditions, but also to meet with the people and see the people that are using the space to really understand how the spaces are being used. And this generates a really detailed set of documents that becomes the foundation for what will work and what won't work. And some of it is about experience, and some of it is about code. You know, there's an exit sign over there, or there's a strobe over there. So you can't put a big screen over there, right? And very often it's like you're a third through the design, and somebody's like, but there's an exit, there's a fire strobe. And you're like, oh, gotta go back. Huge waste of time and money. Light studies, they're really easy to do. I mean, most software has this built in. They're so rarely done. And it's just a must for anybody that's putting in displays. This is a light study that looks at December, where the light's hitting, how many hours a week or a month it's hitting different parts of this screen. And this informs where our screens go, what types of technology we use, and really allows us to ensure a really quality experience, but also one that's more energy efficient. So tape. So I love blue tape because it really helps you understand space. And even when my architectural colleagues come into our studio, we have a experimental lab space in our office. And I will just go and be like, oh, this is the reception desk, and this is where the wall ends. And we walk through the space, and always my colleagues are like, oh man, we should do this more often, because they understand the space in a whole new way. And then we do that on site. So I think this is an example where, that's the rendering. There's a reception desk, there's a conference room, and we did a big tech mock-up. This is a fun example where the client's like, I want a transparent OLED screen in my office. I said, you don't, but I'll set one up and you can see if it'll work there. And then we taped out the whole floor. We walked through the whole space. We kind of acted out the visitor experience, and it really drove both our design, the design of the interiors, and it really created a connection between our client and our team in a deeper way. So taping out is great. We usually start taping out in the office, and you get creative. We're creating this interesting sculpture that's got a bunch of screens at a certain location, and so we taped it out to understand if it's weird that the wall stops there and what the feeling is of walking towards it. And maybe 10 minutes of work informed our entire design process. And I can't tell you, almost nobody does this. Blows my mind. So then technical proof of concepts. So we're moving into our concept design phase. So this is, you're thinking about a new application. Will it really work? This is a similar one that we taped out on the floor. And we're like, all right, well, what if we just project the feeling of light? So we're using a projector, dappled light on a wooden wall, look at it on site. It's gorgeous. Our team loves it. The client loves it. And again, it builds that client relationship. Up there for an exhibit that we designed for LG Display, we had an idea of working with rear projection on a black screen, a scrim, internal lighting, a transparent screen. And so we built this whole mock-up just using PVC tubes and materials in our office to really understand what's possible. So anytime you're moving away from traditional screens, proof of concepts early are the only way to be successful. And again, I have designers that will come to me and have this great idea, but as they have it in their head, it's not going to work. And you don't want to find that out when you're later in the design process. You want to take that idea and figure out what is a rapid proof of concept that can support that and evoke that experience. Scale is huge. So these are scale mock-ups that are just made out of paper and wood to feel what it feels like to navigate through a space. These were all going to become screens, but this was a quick way to test it out. Scale of text on LED, in a rendering, and actually on here too, all of these look identical. And so the client's going to pick the cheapest one, and then when they get on site, they're going to be really upset with you. So you do this, you set it up, and you say, okay, I understand why I need that, and why it's going to cost 20% more. And then the top there is actually a full-scale projection of something that was going to become LED, and so really understanding the form and impact of that in space. Measuring things, site measurements, super key. Again, often forgotten. Again, looking at scale, so this is a big museum board. This is going to be made out of LED, and so we just projected on a big curved museum board for us to really develop content. And so our content team sat and worked on this, and then next to it, they had the actual LED at about this scale to understand how the images and text and everything rendered. Again, big scale, looking at content. Content at scale is always different. I think most of you probably know that. On your screen it takes 10 seconds to go a foot, and here it takes 10 seconds to go 40 feet, so it's going to be experienced really differently. There's also when you see that all of your gradients look like crap, and your compression has to be done totally differently. So, and this video looks that way as well. We do a lot of testing for ADA accessibility and usability, so understanding the experience of where you're touching. Just using a projector allows us to do a lot of that testing very early on and have it part of our iterative design process. So you can see these examples of that. Site testing is, again, really key, understanding viewing angles, understanding the interaction of the displays and the architecture, the displays in the sun. And again, each of these are a really key moment to engage with your client, to engage with the installation team, to engage with the operations team. So a lot of the success of the project is about this type of collaborative design process. Here's another example where we're projecting things at scale, and then at the same time looking at it on the actual technology mock-up, looking at some diffusion, some different metal cladding, and then this moves to site to understand how it actually looks at scale in site. And again, here's a user, a body storming, but also ergonomics and user interaction. We're doing a giant Rube Goldberg machine, and so figuring out how you engage with it at human scale is a key part of this design. And then last, I'll just show you some, we engage really deeply with our production partners and have prototyping as a really key part of our design, so that we look at the actual materials. In this case, we were designing a kinetic sculpture, so understanding the movement of the sculpture, the lighting of the space. And again, this is an amazing time. We brought our whole client team out to this shop. We made these decisions together. My biggest goal in my job is to not get to site and have our client be surprised. right? Like the client should only be delighted. There shouldn't be surprise, because if you've done the process right, you've engaged them in this journey of iterative design. So you can tell, hopefully, that it's a real driver for me, and it's everywhere I go, I build a lab and try to get people's hands as dirty as possible. So thank you very much.
I really love this because that's what digital signage makes digital signage different from typical web or online application or mobile application, because you really have to get your hands dirty.
That's right.
And you have to go out there because it has always this spatial physical component to it, and that's so important for people to understand, sitting on their computers designing things. And I also love that you show that things might look a bit ugly before they look great and shiny when they're finished.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for inspiring us. Yeah, you'll be around for questions, I'm sure.
That's right.
And we'll see you again this afternoon.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.